Turn off my heater. Good afternoon. Welcome in. I'm going to share my screen just so everyone has a clear idea of what they're walking into as people transition to different spaces. So if you are here for, replay, where we're talking about building your leadership playlist for the fall. So anyone that is in this space, you are here for this with myself, the coordinator of student leadership. And I will give people a little bit more time to get transition out of their other rooms because other sessions were going on. And then we'll get started. While people make their happy transitions, we can't have a replay session without music. So I'm going to go cue up my newest obsession that I found over the weekend, which is Chill Hop Radio. So we're going to get that shortly. Something in the chat. Oh, for the treasure workshop. Awful.
Now that I'm not presenting, I'll help with some questions. So.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Chris, let me know if you can hear this. Okay, well, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna assume you hear nothing because I can't hear anything.
No, I haven't heard anything yet. So
okay.
I will say something as soon as I do.
Thank you. Give me. Okay, welcome. For those of you who are entering this space, you should see on your screen the session that we're doing and our time together, which is replay, which is about building our leadership playlist. My playlist is not currently working that I was having to transition us into this space. But if you were here, that's what you're for, the session with me, coordinator of student leadership. So welcome and we'll get started shortly. We're just letting others transition from the other sessions that they were in. So that's not working. It's not. Awesome. For those of you who are still in the space, let me know down in the comments how your last session was. For those of you who are coming to the new space, what were some of the ones that you attended? Tell me in the comment section. Comments. I am not a YouTuber. Tell me in the chat room. This is not for Tiger Stripes. So the Tiger Stripes one just previously ended, Cheyenne, I believe. Okay, self-care, treasure seminar. Love that we got some good information, Natalie. Very nice. Oh, we got some good feedback so far, Chris, from the treasure workshop, which is really good. Self-care, that's important to start off the year with. Very nice. Awesome. Well, glad to hear that some of these were informative. But to the question earlier, the Tiger Strap session has already ended. So Chris is still here presently. If you have any questions, you might want to message him. Oh, Chris, you got your shout out. Tiger Stripes was very informative for Trey in here. So great. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you all are here today and gathering a lot of information that's going to be relevant to you as well as your organizations this year. Again, if you're here in this session, we're specifically doing replay, and we're talking about building our leadership playlist here. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think by this time, most people have done their transitions. And we have some more links being dropped in the chat just in case you all are looking to attend a different session. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Shamaya Dickens. I serve as a coordinator of student leadership in the Office of Student Activities. And today, what we are doing in this session, so there's 3 primary things that we're going to do specifically about our replay session here. Number 1 is definitely going to be about learning tips. So we're going to learn 9, actually, to be exact, tips for how student leaders can be strong leaders at Towson and beyond, because leadership happens outside of these walls here at Towson. Identify 1 to 2 applicable ways each tip can be implemented within the academic year. And then also how intentional actions and choices are displayed in multiple areas of our life. So we have our lovely logo here, and we're going to jump right in. So rules of the road. So rules of the road are really my grounding statements, the way I anticipate for us to react in this space. So shout out to you who've already responded to me in the chat. Rules of the road, number one, is definitely to be engaged while we're in this session. So I very much can see your reactions. I have my screen set up a certain way. So I appreciate and acknowledge reactions in the chat. As well as bring others along the journey. And what that really means when we're talking about rules of the road is that this information, although you were the one receiving it, I know many of you have other student org colleagues in this space, share what is here, share the knowledge that you learned, share the reflections that you're having. Sounds like you guys are already getting some really great information from some of the other sessions you've done, so share. Not all of your student org members could be here today. So those are my two rules. And as long as we abide by those two rules, we'll be good to go. So we're starting along the journey here. So don't want to make the easy assumption that everybody knows what Apple Replay is. So when we're talking about Replay, we're talking about Apple Music, which is a subscription service where you can purchase, play, download, and share all types of music. For those of you who have Spotify, the Apple Music Replay is the equivalent of that. So Apple Music calls it Replay, Spotify calls it Wrapped at the end of the year. But it's really tailored to what are our most frequent listens that occur throughout the year. And at the end of the year, it's really exciting because you get to, and we'll see mine's here in a second, you'll get to go back and see all of the songs that you were obsessed with this year, your favorite tunes, which ones you played the most. And Apple and both Spotify do a really good job of like telling you what artists you listen to the most and all these different curated lists. And so we'll dive into that, but a leadership context today. But it really is a snapshot of what are your musical tastes? What are the things you're taking in, you're frequently listening to that's influencing your vibe or maybe helping you get through some tough moments, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today is our replay list that we're going to develop this year, specifically related to Towson. So what you're about to see here on the screen is you all getting in my personal business. So these are actually screenshots of my replay list. I took a snapshot of 2013 and I'm sorry, not 2013. Wow, 2023 and 2024. And so really, you don't necessarily have to be judgy. We're not here to be judgy, right? Everyone's musical tastes are going to be different. But really, this was a really great reflection point for me because even if some of you are pulling up your playlist right now, you'll definitely see some stark differences between last year to this year. And that's not always necessarily just because of the top hits are changing, right? So for those of you, it's not a best screenshot, but for those of you who can kind of see, you'll see 2023. I very much have jazz in my top 4, right? But you'll see that top 4 move to top 1 in 2024. For those who aren't familiar, Agape and In a Sentimental Mood are both classical jazz instrumentals, right? And so, but you'll see there's some other vibes. Yeva's Heartbreak is still in there. I'm a heartbreak girl, right? And so you'll see that those songs are very consistent for the most part in both of my years. But what you'll see is some other musical tastes are these top 2 that are in 2023 and these other 2 that are in 2024, right? I will say on a personal level, a lot has changed about me from 2023 to 2024. And so really as we're thinking about replay and or Wrapped, if you have Spotify, really kind of talking about what does your playlist say about you, right? I think a lot of what you see here, just from only knowing my name and knowing these lists, you might see like, okay, there's some different tastes here, right? You maybe can infer maybe some changes that have happened about me. And so really what we're going to dive into today, but I'm also going to challenge you to do is really think about, okay, what is your differences or similarities in your playlist say about you? And what we're going to do throughout this presentation is build some of the necessary components of your playlist that you're going to need for this coming year. Okay, the chat was not related to me. Great. Awesome. So here's the number one thing when we're talking about your playlist that you need as a leader here on campus, personal development. And so this is your track number 1. This is your number 1 track. When we're talking about our playlist this year, personal development is something that we absolutely should be pursuing as student leaders here on campus. Why? Because a better you is a better leader for others, right? And so leaders are constantly pouring into bettering themselves because that's how we serve better. That's how we serve our student groups better, our families better, ourselves better. Right here on the screen, we have some opportunities, obviously here at Towson, that you can use to pour into that personal development. But what's not listed here is absolutely things that are still relevant. So books or personal challenges. You know, we've heard of the challenges like the Say Yes challenges, where we say yes to everything, right? And so these are also opportunities. For those of you who were just in the Tiger Stripes session that Chris did, Tiger Stripes really this year, he kind of went over it with the color coding, is absolutely about opportunities for you to develop personally, also as well as for your organization, right? And so there are some conferences, Women in Leadership is happening in November, which is not necessarily just for women to attend. Just want to put that out there in case you're like, I can't go because I identify as another gender. But really a lot of the Tiger Stripes opportunity that Chris just went over are about different ways that you can personally develop. And one of the things I want to emphasize here when we're talking about personal development is that they should be things about you. What are things that interest you? We'll later, as we build our playlist, get into how they impact and influence others. But when we're talking about personal development, what are my flaws or where are the areas that I want to grow in, right? So it takes some really intentional reflection on your part to figure out what really would make you a better you. Where do you want to grow at, right? And so this is the absolute #1 track that needs to be at the top of your list when we're talking about things that you're constantly pouring into so that it can move to the top of your list for #1 is personal development. And again, that can happen through some of the Tiger Stripes opportunities, some of the conferences that happen on campus, but even just other things that are offered within the university that I challenge you to do on a personal basis because you either have an interest in it or you know it'll help you grow in some type of way. I want to get some feedback from the chat. Tell me in the chat what others can you think of. So it could be Towson or otherwise related, but let's uplift some of those in the chat just to give others some ideas of personal development that you've either done in the past year in your replay from the last year, or that you're really excited about trying in the next year or so. So LinkedIn Learning, thank you, Tim Steer. Nice to see you. Very much a great option for you to learn any skill, any skill, any personal development skill. Thanks for uplifting that, Tamster. That's a really great option. Next track that all leaders need, relationship management, right? We are leaders because in relationship to other people, we stand out, we take charge, we are the thought leaders and the get it done people, right? And so relationship management is that #2 track that we need to have on our replay list. And really, when we're talking about relationship management, what we're talking about is how do we manage that dynamic between those in connection to us? Relationship management does not necessarily mean relationship as in a romantic sense. It doesn't necessarily mean relationship from boss to subordinate. They just really mean how we connect to each other. Right now, relationship management is you all are at this event and I'm presenting, right? And so as leaders, as human beings, we're constantly trying to figure out how to manage effectively our relationships. And so that is something that we definitely want you to pour into in order for you to be a better leader, a more efficient leader, a more developed leader in this coming year. One of the opportunities that exists when we're talking about relationship management is understanding how others are different, right? So relationship management doesn't always mean that we understand that you're my friend and you're my sister or my brother or my girlfriend or my boyfriend, right? Relationship management also could mean, hey, we're two different people that are maybe forced to work together or maybe choosing to work together because we have the same interests. How do I figure out where you're really good and where I'm really good and make it come together and work? And so Clifton Strengths is a really great opportunity that exists within the university. There will be details coming out in the next month or so. I'm sure Chris will send an email out about it, specifically about an all-day experience where you're exploring what strengths looks like for yourself primarily, so pouring into that personal development piece, but also others. what do these talents mean for other people? How do I recognize the strengths in other people and optimize it so that I'm optimizing our relationship, right? And so that's another opportunity that is really pouring into both personal development and relationship management, because strengths are something that we all have them. We all have natural talents and abilities. And the more we pour into them and put investment to them, they become strengths. So imagine if we understand that this person's strengths, I don't know, is baking cookies, and my personal strength is making pasta. As we pour into our strengths, we can make a very great potluck, right? That's a very, very low level example. But nonetheless, what relationship management is about. It's about seeing what's really great about other people, and as a leader, optimizing it, supporting it, leaning into it. And so relationship management is another thing that we definitely have to have on our track list when we're talking about our replay for this coming year. Also, we'll get to this in a little bit, but notice my images that I have up here, right? So relationship management, again, how we're in connection to those around us. So we'll get to this a little bit when we talk about networking here in a little bit. Our next thing, communication. So every good leader needs communication on their playlist. Why? Because that's how we pour into the relationship piece, right? We can't necessarily be in connection with people that we don't talk to. Student leaders, you're in a really great position because you all have this elevated role connected to the university, as Dr. Hurt and Dr. Ginsburg were talking about earlier, but you also are still very much students and learning. And so when we're talking about communication, we have these two buckets that I really want us to focus on and for you to pour into. One being the formal side. It could be written or verbal, and we'll get into administrative systems here in a second. But when we're talking about the types of communication, formal is, how do I write this email? I have to have a really tough conversation. I don't really know how to say this, or I want to say this in the right way and be aware of how I communicate this, right? How do I make hard decisions as a leader? Those are the formal things where it's completely okay to get an advisor or trusted friends to help you with that. Those are the things that, need to be written typically, or you're just managing maybe some tough conversations in your student group, right? Informal is really just about communication that we have as a human being. So, perfect example. Right now, I'm being formal with you all. I'm doing a formal presentation. But if I were to see any of you all, if you come into the suite here in the office, then we're engaging in informal dialogue. And that similarly can be written or verbal. And so that's really about, how do I talk to someone who's a stranger? How do I connect with someone that I don't necessarily know much about, or that maybe I do know a little bit about, right? So informal is about how you treat people who cannot do anything for you, right? That's something I was very much raised on. How you treat people who can do nothing for you says a lot about who you are as a person, but similarly a lot about who you are as a leader, right? And so things like the networking night, which is what I briefly mentioned in the slide before when we're talking about relationship management, which Chris mentioned in his Tiger Stripes opportunity. No worries if you didn't hear about it, you'll get an email about it as those things roll out. But these are the informal things. How do I build the skill of talking to people that I don't necessarily know? Career Center very much has similar things that are available where you can build the skills of informal communication. But when we're talking about that formal communication, which is going to dive us right next into our next slide, which is talking about administrative systems, that's where you want to have trusted advisors or friends. Our next track on the list that makes you a successful leader on your leadership playlist is really talking about administrative systems. The word sounds big and complex. It's not as complex as it seems. Really, those systems are what help you thrive, right? So I heard one or two people had went to the self-care session, right? I'm sure this may not have been actually said, but how we figure out how to thrive is the systems we've set in place, whether that is every morning I need to get my coffee so that I can be alert, or that is I need to have my pens in front of me to do an assignment, right? Or write everything down. But when we're talking about specifically with student organizations, your administrative systems are the things that are set in place to help you thrive as a leader. They keep the communication channels really clear. They pour into the relationship management piece. And they just make your life easier, which is attaching to that personal development, right? So administrative systems that already exist for you or that you may want to explore as either a new student organization leader or someone who's already seasoned and want to just make sure they're tip top and up to shape. Involve that to you. Those of you who were just in Tiger Stripes, Chris went over a myriad of resources that are available to you that connect the things you want to do with your student organization to Towson overall, whether that is a purchase request form, right? So that we can properly get our events done. Which is where we're talking about the financial systems. Google Drive. I think a lot of you all, from what I've seen, have Google Drives in for your specific organizations. So going through those old documents, your constitution. Hey, if it's outdated, let's update that, right? Because that is a part of the formal processes of leadership. Those things written in stone or easily accessible help you be a better leader. They are supposed to be there to keep the communication clear, but make life a little bit easier for everyone that is connected to your student organization. So don't think of administrative systems as something that's terrible. Really, it's going to be a system for optimizing efficiency. And especially if you are in an organization that has a lot of members, that's really, really important. Where do the members go through to get this form or to submit their pictures or to do whatever is connected specifically to your organization, right? So that's where the administrative systems really come into play because they help help optimize all those things we just talked about before, right? That personal piece where you don't necessarily have to send an email every time you have an event because everyone knows, okay, after an event, we upload our pictures to this Google Drive, right? Administrative systems, they don't always have to be bad. They're not daunting, but they're meant to support all of those other tracks that we were just talking about. Okay, I'm going to check the chat here right now because I've seen a couple come in and I might have missed it. Oh, Kelly dropping spoilers. Look at that. Okay, well, there goes the information. So check the chat. There's a Clifton Strengths on Saturday, September 12th. So, and signups are open. So that is available to those of you who want to do the personal development and the relationship management piece. And thank you, Julia, for sharing the yoga piece. I very much have my own little meditation thing going on for the personal development for me. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. All right. Our next track. Listen. Time management. As good leaders, we have to figure out how to optimize it only because it helps us not get burnt out, right? So I'm sure some of you all who just went to the self-care session can share some of the tips that were sent over there in the systems that help us. But we're talking about how do we optimize time for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities, and our student organization and our academics. Time management is a really big piece of that. And it doesn't make you a bad person. Believe it or not, time management is a skill, which brings me to the resource that I have here. So for those of you who are not aware, and those of you who maybe just didn't think you felt shame to use it, don't. The Tutoring and Learning Center has specifically, which is attached to the library, Albert S. Cook Library, has academic skills. And guess what? Time management is one of them. And so utilizing these systems that are within the university to really optimize, how do I balance all of this? I might be a new student organization leader, and this is a lot. I'm getting emails all the time. I'm having student group members who come to me with issues or concerns, right? And it doesn't make you a bad leader. That just means you have to get your playlist in order, right? So that you can properly support yourself and properly support the people that you are connected to, right? That relationship management piece. And so time management is really something that is important to pour into as a leader to have on your playlist, because it really, I think, at least for me personally, it helps optimize that personal piece. But also it gives your relationship management piece time, right? So if I know Tuesdays and Thursdays is when I call my family, but all these other days are when I do student organization stuff, and Sunday's my day to get all my academics done, this is how you create those administrative systems, right? So administrative systems aren't a bad thing. They're just a way that we create some flow so that some normalcy is already set in place, right? And so time management is a really top thing that you want to have in your playlist as a leader, so that you can really optimize what you bring to your student organizations. And you can get to some of the later things that we're going to talk about here in a second. So group culture development. I'm going to have culture parenthesized. I'll go over that in a second here. But when we're talking about group development, you are a leader because you are in relation to other people who have either voted you to be the leader or you put yourself in the hat to be the leader of, right? No one's on this call by happenstance. You are a leader of your organization. And so as leaders, there is a responsibility to others, not necessarily to the people that are in your organizations, but to others in general. I think that's really a human thing. We have some sort of responsibility to family, some sort of responsibility to our community, and so on and so forth, right? But when we're talking specifically about our groups at Towson, we're talking about group development. How do I improve my group, right? So you see that upward trajectory we have going here, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean your student group is bad or wrong. I think it's very humanistic that sometimes we have challenges or sometimes we want to optimize ways to understand each other better. Doesn't mean it's bad at all. But when we're talking about group development or specifically group culture development, these are one of the tactics. And excuse, I don't have a play symbol here. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to have a forward track symbol in this slide. Excuse me. But when we're talking about group culture development, we're really talking about we've done the personal, we've done the time management, we've done the relationship. How do we get the best out of ourselves as leaders in the group or as participants in the group, right? So this, again, doesn't necessarily have to be connected to conflict. We'll get into some other things here that may help demystify what this is. But when we're talking about group culture development, maybe it is, let's figure out how we talk to each other a little bit more efficiently, right? That doesn't mean we are bad people. Maybe we just have to figure out a new way to talk to each other. And so Chris mentioned, but I'll also reemphasize some of the student accountability and restorative practices sessions that are happening this semester, right? Really, I know a lot of times we focus on the accountability piece, but really restorative practices is an office that has some great resources and I think for communication tactics and even how we relate to each other and how we navigate conflict or challenges, right? So creating and figuring out with yourself and your team, because remember the rules of the road is to take this back. What is our group culture? What do our meetings feel like? Are they daunting? Are we excited to come together and talk about all the things we want to do for our student organization? And if there's ways for us to improve on that, well, let's connect to some resources within the university that can help us do that, right? And so group culture development to help us soar in the right direction is something that definitely should be something that you're considering on your playlist for your replay for at the end of this year. So again, these are all the things, I'm giving you the building blocks for the year so that when you come back at the end of the year for your replay or at the end of the fall semester rather, you'll have all these things, all these tracks that you've been pouring into. So this is the prelude to build your playlist. So group culture development is something you definitely want to have at the forefront of your mind. Any questions? Let me take some time. I feel like I'm going kind of fast. Any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat as well. Chris's personal strength is eating cookies. I just saw that. Perfect. Awesome. I had a chat here. Oh, thank you, Natalie. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, Natalie says she's loving it, so I'll keep on going. Awesome. All right. So delegation, sharing the load. So think of this as, you know how Drake sometimes has those songs that have like 2 different titles in it? Think of it as this, right? So this is my 2 different titles in one song for this particular playlist, right? So this is our next track, delegation and sharing the load. We're leaders because we can't do it all, right? We are not a team of one. Typically, you need more than one person to be on a team, right? And so delegation and sharing the load is really us talking about learning the skill or pouring into how do we optimize delegation so that we can get the big things done or even the small things done that we really want to get done for our student organization or clubs, right? So, you know, depending on what position you are, maybe you're the president of your student club or organization. Maybe that looks like delegation. Or maybe you are the PR person, but you have other people who do pictures at different events. Maybe that looks like delegation, right? But more importantly, it's about sharing the load, right? So now we're talking a little bit and pouring into that relationship management piece a little bit more, because you are you're in relation with other people in these student club and organizations that you're in, right? It's not just you. You can't even be a group with just one person, right? You need five, right? So it's not just you. And so here is where we take the opportunity to figure out, and I'm sure there's some things that you all have already done, right? Figuring out what events do we want to do this semester? What's something that we maybe have a tradition of bringing to campus every year that people want to see come back, right? Okay, let's pour into delegation. And believe it or not, delegation is a skill, which is why here I have listed the advisors. So this kind of can tie directly into some of the formal communication that we talked about a little bit earlier. And you'll see there's a common thread between each of these. When we're talking about leadership, there's overlap of skill building that happens that helps you become a better leader. But really, this is where advisors are really great assets for you to utilize. They deal with people, right? They deal with people in relationship management, in multiple contexts, from depending on if you have a faculty member, from students to departments to other faculty members, or if you have a staff member from their department and campus partners, right? And so we've figured out what relationship management looks like. And so sharing the load or delegation or being on teams is something that your advisor could absolutely help you with. And again, we're not saying this in a negative context. It's not to say that you all struggle with this. We're building our playlist so that you can have a really great fire playlist at the end of the year, right? Year, semester, depending on when some of you all graduate, right? And so that delegation piece is important. What I also will say is sharing the load. That's really important. Sometimes we think sharing the load and delegation is the same, and it's not, which is why we have this is the 2-track list that Drake does all the time with the slash, right? Because delegation is one thing. Delegation is assignment, right? Directives. Sharing the load is just how it sounds. It's sharing the load. There's an encompassing incorporation piece of either getting people involved who are typically not involved, or bringing people in who maybe are trying to figure out how to find their place in your student club or organization, because that matters as well. That's an active leadership of bringing them in so that they find their community and within your organizations. So with that, I'm going to reference Campus Recreations, who does have team building activities available for students here on campus. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you guys have to go hiking. I know there are some that are available to happen within the Burdick Hall. But again, this is an opportunity where sharing the load could look like, well, let me figure out, again, kind of going back to our relationship management, what are your strengths? Let me see it in action. Let's see it in an obstacle course. And then we can kind of figure out how to pull you in, right? And so that's another opportunity when we're talking about sharing the load or delegation. That's something to absolutely have on your playlist, because we are leaders because we optimize other people. That is a part of the responsibility of being a leader, no matter what club or organization that you're in. And so these are two opportunities that you can tap in order to ensure that you're doing that properly this year. On to the next one. Okay. Relationship management and time management are your go-to tracks so far. Trey's building his playlist, and I love it. Very nice. Very, very nice. All right. So, I would put this at number 1, but I have to be responsible, y'all. Have fun. You are at a time and precipice of your life that you will never get back. Trust me, right? Those college years are amazing years. You're a part of these student organizations. You're doing events. You're finding community. You're building community for others who are new students coming to campus, right? And so have fun. This is something that should absolutely be on your playlist. And so I have listed here different ways you can do this. And really, we're a pretty active university, so you have so many ways. A lot of you do it specifically through your club and organizations, which is great, and we love that. But some of you all may want a change of environment, and that's where you just utilize things that the university has, right? So homecoming. I encourage all of you, if you do not have a connection piece with homecoming, to make sure you all prioritize that as a group this year. Not necessarily as a daunting task, but to have fun together. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily be in the parade, but let's go to the game together. As you can see, there's some athletic symbols here, right? So going to a game with people in your executive board or people within your club or organization is always a great way to bond outside of the common interests you already share within the organization. Always going to uplift Tiger Tuesday because we have a time at Tiger Tuesday, right? And so for those of you who aren't familiar, which I think most of you may be, Tiger Tuesday happens every Tuesday downstairs. I'm saying downstairs in the Union, sorry, and pause. And they're different things. Bingo, I say get there early. It's always chaotic. Bingo, trivia. They've done tie-dye. They've done time capsules for your time here at Towson, right? And so these are the type of things where you literally can just enjoy having fun with your people that you're in community with. Supporting another org's event. If any of you have been to some of my sessions before, I'm a great supporter of you all supporting each other as students. Again, you do not get this time back in being in your undergraduate year. And so capitalizing on that as much as possible. And then again, the sporting events. I don't have it listed here, but even some of the things that CAB does, go watch a movie together. You know, it doesn't have to be anything that takes time. As you all know, most of the pretty much many of the activities we do in our office are free. Why? Because they're for students to come and enjoy. So don't think of necessarily fun things as having to be attached to just your org specifically. I'm sure you're going to have a really great time in your student organizations. But also if you want to switch it up or if you want to, you know, support someone else, connect with the university for some of these other things because having fun outside of your club and organization is really important. Okay, Kelly said y'all should be in the parade. So, so Kelly has made the announcement to be in the parade. More details come about that later. Natalie, thank you for this comment. My officer group have had picnics and potluck in the Glenwoods for a fun event, and I love that. That is an amazing example of what it looks like to have fun together. Natalie, I'm going to make a healthy assumption that your club has nothing to do with picnics. It has nothing to do with the Glenwoods, right? And so this is where we go ahead and go into different environments and just bond, like bond or be or create moments and memories with each other. I might absolutely encourage you all to do that as executive board leaders. And these are some things that talk about now. Again, that's where this time management piece comes in. Schedule your downtime now with your executive board. Doesn't have to be a retreat. Hey, y'all, this is a day we're going to try. Maybe right after midterms or right before midterms. Astronomy club. Love that. You should absolutely go to the planetarium. So Natalie's club is the astronomy club. And that is the group that went to do picnics and potlucks in the Glenwoods. But I'm advocating for you all, Natalie. Go to the planetarium. I've heard it's an amazing time. Actually, invite me next time because I still haven't made it. But yeah, so these are the things that, you know, schedule that time preemptively. This is what it means to actively do time management. Natalie, I'm coming. To actively do time management because you want to have that well-rounded sense of taking care of yourself, taking care of those relationships that you manage. But also, obviously, a student organization is a big piece of why you all are here, right? So they're a big part of what you love about Towson or what you love about your time here. So that's a really great time to keep in mind and a track you have to have on your playlist. Yes, we have business to do, but we should also be having fun. Okay. This one's going to be a little tough. So I want us to all do a communal breath on the count of 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Ask for help. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to even carry the burden, right? So that's why delegation and some of these other things are listed earlier, right? On our playlist. But asking for help is an important tip. And I think sometimes it's something that we as leaders don't necessarily naturally gravitate towards. But see what I have listed here: office of student activities. Chris, I think, is more than willing. I put you out here, Chris. More than willing, not just necessarily Chris too, but those connected to our office are more than willing to support you all in the challenges that you're like, I don't know what to do. I think your advisors are absolutely your go-to for that. But it's really a great opportunity for you all to say, hey, I don't really know, or I need some help, right? And maybe the words I need some help doesn't necessarily come out. And that's okay, because I'm not judging you. But maybe the words that come out is I feel stuck. Okay. That's a great trigger word to say maybe I need some help, right? And so these are also the things that need to be on your playlist, because as leaders, we're never going to figure it out. There's always going to be someone that knows more. There's always going to be someone who has maybe a better administrative system or time management trick. Or so this says ask for help, but it's also a tie-in of be willing to learn, right? Be willing to hear what other people are doing to help optimize what they have going on. Even talk to other student organization leaders. You know, Chris has town halls at the end of the semester, and I know not everyone gets invited to it, but you don't necessarily just need Chris to talk to each other either, right? You all have plenty of ways to connect to each other, especially with platforms like this and Involved at TU, plenty of ways to connect with each other to simply gather ideas. So this track really asks for help is really about the I feel stuck, I don't know what to do, right? But we also don't want you to get to that place either before you identify that maybe you're struggling, right? And so some of the preludes to this track, I would say, is maybe just talk to other people. And then if you really still get to that point, your advisor and Office of Student Activities is more than willing to be your advocates for support here. But it should be on your track, because we don't know it all. We don't have it all figured out, and we're not supposed to. That's where relationship management for leadership comes in. We have to build on each other. That's how we build community. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And so ask for help. Gonna go to the chat here. Oh yeah, we're having a good time here. Picnics. Oh, we are on the Exercise Science Club. Very nice. So it looks like we have some connections going on in the chat, right? So Natalie, looks like the Astronomy Club is hosting a potluck in the Glenwoods, and we're going to join because now we have the Exercise Science Club possibly come in, and I very much want to come too. Awesome. Well, I might be a little bit early. I'm probably a little bit early. But let's go ahead and do the replay, and I want you to type your favorite track in the I'm not a YouTuber, not in the comments, in the chat. I'm so sorry, y'all. But we got track one. When we're talking about leadership, personal development should absolutely be something that we are alluding to, right? Because us being better helps others around us being better, because as we pour into ourselves, we naturally should be pouring into others, right? Track two, that relationship management piece. We are leaders because we were in connection with others, right? And so what does it look like to optimize those relationships? What does it look like to learn the strengths of other people, or even learn the weaknesses of other people and learn how to optimize that as leaders? Because that's what leadership is. We take risk as leaders, right? Track number three, I put this as my interlude since we have formal and informal, right? So, track number three is where we're talking about communication. And so we talked about that formal communication of like, oh, how do I navigate saying this or handling this situation, all the way over to the informal, where it's just about how do I talk to other people that owe me nothing? Because that is also a very important form of leadership. How you treat people who can do absolutely nothing for you says a lot about who you are as a leader, right? And so we have our interlude that has both sides of that. Administrative systems. It sounds daunting. It's not. It's meant to help you, right? So our Google Drives that naturally exist for our student clubs and organization, Involved at TU, and all the systems and processes that are meant to help you bring some really great events to campus and really great resources to campus. So those administrative systems that help what feed into both our relationship management and our personal development, but also track number 5, our time management. Time management, it is a skill. It does take time to learn. And so utilizing the tutoring and learning center for that. I didn't say this before, but specifically they have academic skills coaches. So let me also clarify that if anyone was specifically interested in that. But academic skill coaches is the title. Time management. How do we get it all done as leaders and still take care of ourselves, still make sure our playlist is in order? Group culture development. That's where we really figure out, how do we grow this thing? How do we listen to each other and continue to be on an upward trajectory as a group? How do we make sure that people come here and are having a good time? We're not daunted to get together and plan this event. It's going to be something that we're going to pour into, and we're going to have a good time while doing it, right? Delegation and share the load. This is something that doesn't necessarily naturally come easy, and that's okay. Because that's where these resources are supposed to be here to help you. Again, that's my Slash song, right? So delegate, these are 2 different songs in one track, okay? Delegation and share the load is not necessarily 2 things. They overlap, but they're not simultaneous, right? So delegation is where we're given directives, and not in a bad way. Directives, it sounds strong, but it's not. We're given directives and guidance on things that need to be done. Whereas sharing the load could be either we're given directives to bring people in, or we're finding ways to allow people to have some agency in some of the student organizations that we're in. Maybe we don't have to plan the next picnic in the Glenwoods for the Shawnee Club. Maybe someone who's not on the executive board can do it, right? Because we're sharing the load. We're getting other people involved in the things that help optimize our time and optimize our relationship management, right? So those are my 2 tracks in one song. Number 8, ask for help. I'm sorry. Yes, number 8. Sorry. All right. I tripped myself up here. This should be switched. Number 8 is have fun. Sorry. So number 8, have fun. There are plenty of opportunities within the university for you all to have a good time with each other outside of just the events or game nights or different programmings that you're putting on for your specific club based upon your interests. There's some opportunities to switch it up. So come see us at Tiger Tuesday one of these Tuesdays. And last but not least, ask for help. And again, I'll reiterate with this track, which should be number 9. So I have to flip that. For this track, your advisors are great resources. The office is a great resource. But also, don't wait till you get to the point where you need help, right? If I feel stuck is your word, then it's okay to get some guidance, some support. If you think help is a very negative word for you, some guidance and support to get you to where you want to be, right? But your advisors and the office itself is really here as a resource for you to navigate some of those challenges that may come up and support you through that in the best way that's possible for you. All right, I'm going to go to this chat and I'm going to go through our replay list. So it looks like we have some. Oh, okay. Now there's cupcakes. Okay. Natalie, like, put it on my calendar. Like, there's cupcakes coming. We're absolutely here for you. Time management. So thank you, Michaela, for sharing. Seems like that's your number 1 track. We love that. I hope you utilize that resource in the Tutoring and Learning Center. Ask for help. Love that. Thelma, I'm going to reiterate, we don't have to get it there. Maybe it's just about talking to some other student leaders, right? Help comes in many different forms, but we're definitely here for you as like the end all be all. Relationship management. Thank you. I want to say it's Catherine. Please forgive me if that's incorrect. Relationship management. Okay. Very great. Trey, thank you for that. Asking for help. Delegation / thank you, Natalie, because it's 2 songs in 1 track. Yep. Okay. Sharing the load there. Very nice. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing these favorite tracks. Oh, sorry, I didn't even see Tasmina either. Administrative systems, right? So the things that already exist within the university, don't feel shame to, not shame, that's probably not the right word. Don't feel limited to just yourself. I'm sure someone in the data analytics club would love to help you guys create an Excel sheet related to your organization, right? So utilize your resources in the university that way too. Again, Chris is just the catalyst for bringing student organizations together, but you all should feel hopefully empowered enough to connect with each other outside of some of the spaces that Chris puts together. So find you someone who loves data analytics and have them help you create your administrative systems. So that's great. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing in the chat and applying to the rules of the road. Where is my last slide? Okay. Again, my name is Shamaya Dickens. I am your coordinator for student leadership here at Towson. What I have here on the screen is 2 emails. One is mine, but the other is Tigers Lead, which is our multi-phase leadership development program that we have here on campus that is offered for any student. That's where you're really pouring into the personal development piece, because we are taking you through what leadership looks like specifically for you, with some other leaders that may be across campus there. So it's an opportunity for you to get to know yourself as a leader, but also gain some really great skills. So that is the end of my presentation. Chris, I ended a little early and I am sorry. If you want to fill the time with anything.
That's fine. For those that were here for Shemaya's session, can we give her some reaction rounds of applause?
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
nice.
I appreciate you.
Thanks.
So I can tell that just by the numbers, we've had some of our other sessions. Yes, check, clap, clap. We've had some other sessions that have let out. If you were here from a different session besides Shemaya's, can you please type in the chat which session you were coming here from? Just so we know what we're still waiting on.